Hey everybody, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to take a look at a card game that wasn't really on my radar, but is about one of one of history's greatest scientists, and also a man who was just utterly insane, Nikola Tesla. This is called Tesla, the Master of Lightning, and this is a game that's kind of a trick taker, but not really a trick taker, and kind of a bidding game. I guess it's a bidding game on which you're going to be using cards from your deck in order to buy more cards from your deck, and those could be more cards that will allow you to buy cards, or it could be victory points at the end of the game. It could even be negative points at the end of the game if you're not careful. So real quick, we'll take a look at what you get inside of this box. We'll see how the game plays, and then we'll come back at the end and get my opinions on Tesla, Master of Lightning. So here you can see the setup for a game of Tesla Master of Lightning for 4 players. Now what this deck of cards has in it is several types of cards. Some of them are suited and they have a number on them. For example, this one is a 60 million volts AC in the orange color, or it's going to have a location on it, which is Wardenclyffe, the Tower of Power. These are going to be cards that you're going to use in order to try and take tricks. So this one's worth 60 points when trying to take a trick. There are several different suits in different colors. The colors are mostly irrelevant, but not totally, so you'll see why shortly. There are also going to be positive points. These are worth nothing for trying to take a trick, but this is 30 positive or 30 million positive points at the end of the game. You'll want these in your deck in order to win. There are also going to be power cards. Power cards are cards that must be played at a specific time. They may be in a trick, or they may be before the tricks are started. This one, for example, says it must be played before tricks are started, that you draw 3 cards from the common deck, put 1 in your hand, 1 into your input or draw deck, and 1 into your output or discard deck. And then you're going to discard this to somebody else's discard pile. In addition to positive points, there are negative points. Clearly you want to avoid these because they're worth negative points at the end of the game if they're in your deck. Finally, there are going to be cards that are value for your voltage. This one is a Colorado or green value for your voltage. If you have these in your deck, these are going to be worth 5 million volts at the end of the game for every green suited card that you happen to have in your deck. So picking these up, if you happen to have a lot of these, will be worth a lot of points at the end of the game if you can manage to do so. Now, at the start of the game, each player is going to be dealt 12 cards from this deck, and they're going to look through those 12 cards and decide which 9 of them they would like to keep. These could be the ones with the highest values for trick taking, or they could be the ones with the highest endgame points. Likely, they will not be the negative point cards, but they may be value for your voltage cards. Anyway, they'll choose 9 of them, keep them and shuffle them into a deck, and return the other 3 to be put back into the draw deck. Once this is done, as I said, they'll shuffle their deck and they're going to draw the top 6 cards of their deck to form their hand for the round. So each player would draw 6 cards, and once they've done so, the round will begin. With the dealer, whoever the dealer happens to be at this point, you can mark that and it'll rotate each round. With the dealer dealing out 3 cards for the first trick to be played. So when we deal these out, you'll see that it's going to be 60 million volts, 30 million volts, and 20 million volts, 2 greens, and a red. Once we've got this set up, each player is going to choose 3 cards from their hand in order to be a bid to win these cards. And if they win them, they'll go into their discard pile and eventually become a part of their deck when their deck runs out, much like a common deck builder. Before you do this, each player is going to have to play any power cards they have in their hand that require them to play them. You'll look at the wording here and it says play this card as part of a trick, but nope, not this card. You have another one here that says play this as part of a trick, but it counts as 0. Not this one either. You would have each player look at their hand of cards, and for example, they might have one that says, play this card before this round's tricks are played. All other players must discard one of their cards from their hand, and they will play one of the tricks with 1 fewer card. It could be the 3-card trick, the 2-card trick, or the 1-card trick. But no matter what, each player has to discard down 1. However, you get to draw back up. So this will go into the discard pile, your discard pile, and you will go ahead and draw 1 additional card, putting it into your hand. Each other player will take their deck of cards and they will discard 1 card from their hand in order to make sure that they are at the right number of cards. So maybe they discard these cards, and this player discards down this card because it's worth nothing anyway. After they've done this, they're going to move on to the actual trick. In order to play a trick, each player for the 3-card trick is going to choose 3 cards from their hand in order to play out to the trick. Now remember that all of our players except for 1 are playing 1 card short. So let's say that that player decides to use these 3 cards, and we'll just flip them over to keep it easy to see. This player decides to choose only 2 cards for this round, those 2. This player here chooses to play 3, these 3. And this player here decides to choose to play 2 because we all know that they're short a card. And remember, or actually note, that you do not ever have to play the required number of cards in a round. So in this case, since this is a 3-card trick and a 3-card round, you could play 0, 1, 2, or 3 cards, any number you would like. Once everyone has played their cards face down, we would all reveal them. So you'd be choosing these cards and placing them face down. Then you're going to look and see who has the highest total value of voltage played. So this player here happens to have 70. Okay, 70 is not bad. This player here is at 0. They're clearly not going to win. This player here is at 60. They are already beaten by the 70. And this player right here is at 20. They do not win either. So our 70 million values of volts, whatever I want to say there, can't get it out, is going to win this trick. And they're going to take the 3 cards from the center, as well as the 2 cards that they played, and put them into the discard pile. So that is one trick. However, each round consists of 3 tricks. The second trick is going to be dealt out 2 cards. So now we'll see that there's a 20 million volts and a 20 positive points at the end of the game. This is direct points at the end of the game, so if you take this, you've earned yourself 20 points. When we do this, now each player is going to draw some other cards. So now this player played 1 card short the last time. They don't need to play short anymore, so they'll play these 2 cards. This player will play these 2 cards. This player here is going to go ahead and play these 2 cards. And this player here will go ahead and play these 2 cards. So everybody's playing 2 cards this round. Now I've clearly confused my piles and players somewhere in here, so forgive me, but it doesn't really matter. You get the idea. In the first trick, you're supposed to be playing 3 cards to win 3 cards. In the second trick, you're supposed to be playing 2 to win 2. And in the third trick, which you'll see in a moment, you're going to play 1 card to win 1. Never having to play that many cards, and sometimes being forced to play fewer. Anyhow, each of our players has chosen their cards. We're each going to reveal 2 this round, although I know somebody's supposed to be playing short. But we reveal these, and this player has played 90. This player over here has played nothing, so they can go ahead and throw their cards away. This player here has played 30, but they should have played this before the round's tricks were played. It says that this would be placed on the table in front of you, and at any time you may draw another card. So we'll say that they drew another card and played that to the trick instead. And so that's 40 positive points, but no real money that's going to beat out the current bid of 90. And then the last player reveals 60. Again, they can't win, so these tricks are going to go over here. And this player has earned themselves a new card and 20 points for the end of the game. We would then move on to the last trick. Everybody would have 1 card left, or in the case of the players that had to play fewer cards somewhere along the line, they may have no cards left. But we're playing for a 10 value trick-taking card. And they would go ahead and they would bid their last card for these cards. You may not have any cards left, which means you would bid nothing. It is possible where everyone bids nothing from their cards. In that case, you're going to have a tie. And in any case of a tie, the players are going to draw, starting with the player left of the dealer, 1 card off of the top of the deck and add it to their current 0 bid. So if this were the case and nobody played anything, this would be a bid of 50, a bid of 60, another bid of 50, and a bid of 10, and the player over here would win this card. This can happen when the last card is, for example, a negative point value card that you don't want. Anytime you draw these cards off of the top of the deck, they also get added to your discard pile. So this is a way that you can draw extra cards. They could be good for you. They could be point cards. They could be bad for you. They could be negative point cards. Or they could be neutral, either trick-taking cards or end-of-game voltage or value for your voltage cards that you need. Anyhow, after you're done with these tricks, you're going to take all of the cards you played and all of the cards you won into your discard pile, and you'll draw from your draw deck until you have 6 cards. Of course, this may mean that you need to shuffle your discard pile, deal them back out, and draw 3 more cards, for example, in order to have a 6-card hand. So the cards that you win will be circled back into your deck, just like a common deck-building card game. You're going to play through in rounds like this, passing the dealer to the left and starting again, drawing out your 6 cards, and playing 3 more tricks, 3 cards, 2 cards, 1 card, 3 bid, 2 bid, 1 bid, until this deck of cards is gone. Now, it may happen that the future rounds or the last round, there's not enough cards for all of the bids, and you will simply play it out with the number of cards that are there. And when you run out of cards, the round will end. At the end of the game, you're going to get positive points for any of the positive value cards in your deck, as we looked at. So this player doesn't have any right now, but we know that this player has at least some. So that's positive 20, that's another positive 40. You would add all of those up. You would also subtract the negative points that you have in your deck. And then for each of the value for your voltage cards, you're going to sort through your deck and find out how many cards you have of those suits, times the multiplier on those cards, and add those to your total points. And whoever has the most points after all of the rounds are done is going to be the winner. And there you have it. That is Tesla, Master of Lightning. Now this game, I was surprised by a little bit, actually. I like it. I like the combination of deck building and bidding. And when I read the rules, it described it as a trick taker, and it's really not a trick taker. It is indeed a bidding game, where you're going to have a deck of cards and you're going to get some of those cards each round, and that is going to determine how you play out your cards. That combined with what comes up in the bids, of course. So you're kind of trying to actively make these decisions as how much of your points you'd like to bid or how much of your value you'd like to bid each round. But you could come up in a scenario where you simply don't get the cards to bid, right? If you kept poorly at the start of the game, maybe you just kept all of your negative points for some reason. Or, of course, with the luck of the draw, you could just draw poorly. That happens in deck building games. So there's that random element of chance in there. The power cards, I'm not sure how I feel about the power cards, to be honest with you. I think some of them are interesting. Some of them, definitely like the ones where you have to discard down a card, make the choices of what to bid on more interesting. So I think some of them are good. Others just kind of feel forced, like a zero value power card. Why isn't it just a zero value not power card, right? Why isn't it just points or negative points or no points, just a dead card in your hand? I guess that's kind of a nitpick, but at the same time, some of the power cards are more interesting than others. The game with 2 players, I'm not sure it's meant to be a 2-player game. You can play it 2 players. I enjoyed myself 2 players because I was learning the style of the game, and I think the bids were interesting enough still, but it becomes a little bit predictable in that case. When you've seen who's taken most of the cards that have a value, you can kind of guess who's going to take most of the tricks in the future. This plays out a little bit differently with more players, where it becomes a little bit more chaotic, what with power cards coming up, but not too chaotic, and definitely less predictable, which is a good thing. So as things come out, more and more players are trying to best position themselves to win the appropriate cards for their decks, be it positive points, or the value for your voltage, or just the appropriately colored cards. So overall, a very interesting combination of bidding and deck building, one that I'm excited to play even more. I like the theme. The theme doesn't really matter, but I still like Tesla, so it gets points for that in my book. But overall, a very interesting game from a small publisher, one that I suggest you check out. That is Tesla, Master of Lightning.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.